Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books. Happy Feast of Christ the King. It's Sunday, and we just got back from having brunch after Mass. The Mass today was just beautiful. We go to the 10 o'clock at the parish that has the traditional choir, and they just sang so beautifully today. And we had a really good homilist. We have a deacon who is just really good at homilies. He actually went to the same seminary that my father went to. And my father obviously didn't become a priest. He left, went and fought in World War II, and then got married. And this deacon, of course, he's probably 20 years younger than my father, or maybe more, but he also decided he wasn't called to be a priest. So he left that seminary and, got married and had kids and worked. And then when he retired, he became a permanent deacon. So he's a great homilist. I love my pastor. He's a very devout and humble guy, but he is not the greatest homilist. Anyway, so it got me all excited to read the next part of the Dream of Gerontius. And because in section 5, Gerontius is approaching the throne of Christ the King, who's going to judge him. And even though section 5 is longer, I think it might be like 11 minutes long. It's longer than section 4. Section 4 felt a lot harder to read. This one, because it's a lot of angels singing hymns. It's very uplifting, and it's very there's a lot of rhyme and regular meter, and it's very harmonious. But it builds the tension because he's ascending towards the throne, so you're going step by step with him. And it's a continued dialogue between his angel and the soul of Gerontius. And if you want to read along, go to newmanreader.org and search for Gerontius. And you can read along with it. It's better to just read it than watch me. So, and hopefully I won't stumble too much. I really stumbled yesterday. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read this. I'm going to read the very last stanza that I kind of messed up in section 4 because section 5 is actually an interruption from that dialogue. So the angel is telling Gerontius at the very last part of section 4. He says, "There was a mortal who is now above in the mid-glory. He, when near to die, was given communion with the crucified, such that the Master's very wounds were stamped upon his flesh, and from the agony which thrilled through body and soul in that embrace, learned that the flame of the everlasting love doth burn ere it transform. Hark! To those sounds," and this is section 5, "they come of tender beings angelical, least and most childlike of the sons of God, the first choir of angelicals. Praise to the holiest in the height, and in the depth be praised, in all his words most wonderful, most sure in all his ways. To us his elder race he gave, to battle and to win, without the chastisement of pain, without the soil of sin. The younger son he willed to be a marvel in his birth. Spirit and flesh his parents were, his home was heaven and earth. The eternal blessed his child and armed, and sent him hence afar, to serve as champion in the field of elemental war, to be as viceroy in the world of matter and of sense, upon the frontier towards the foe, a resolute defense." Then the angel says, "We now have passed the gate and are within the house of judgment, and whereas on earth temples and palaces are formed of parts, costly and rare, but all material, so in the world of spirits naught is found to mold withal and form into a whole, but what is immaterial. And thus the smallest portions of this edifice, cornice or frieze or balustrade or stair, the very pavement is made up of life, of holy, blessed, and immortal beings, who hymn their Maker's praise continually." Second choir of angelicals. Praise to the holiest in the height, and in the depth be praise. In all his words most wonderful, most sure in all his ways. Woe to thee, man, for he was found a recreant in the fight, and lost his heritage of heaven and fellowship with light. Above him now the angry sky, around the tempest din, who once had angels for his friends, had but the brutes for kin. O man, a savage kindred they, to flee that monster brood, he scaled the seaside cave and clomb the giants of the wood. With now a fear and now a hope, with aids which chance supplied, from youth to eld, from sire to son, he lived and toiled and died. He dreed his penance age by age, and step by step began slowly to doff his savage garb and be again a man. And quickened by the Almighty's breath, and chastened by his rod, and taught by angel visitings, at length he sought his God, and learned to call upon his name, and in his faith create a household and a fatherland, a city and a state. Glory to him who from the mire, in patient length of days, elaborated into life a people to his praise. Soul. The sound is like the rushing of the wind, the summer wind among the lofty pines, swelling and dying, echoing round about, now here, now distant, wild and beautiful, while scattered from the branches it has stirred, descend ecstatic odors. Third choir of angelicals. Praise to the holiest in the height, and in the depth be praise. In all his words most wonderful, most sure in all his ways. The angels, as beseemingly to spirit kind was given, at once were tried and perfected, and took their seats in heaven. For them no twilight or eclipse, no growth and no decay. 'Twas hopeless, all engulfing night or beatific day. But to the younger race there rose a hope upon its fall, and slowly, surely, gracefully, the morning dawned on all. And ages opening out divide the precious and the base, and from the hard and sullen mass mature the heirs of grace. O man, albeit the quickening ray, lit from his second birth, makes him at length what once he was, and heaven grows out of earth. Yet still between that earth and heaven, his journey and his goal, a double agony awaits his body and his soul. A double debt he has to pay, the forfeit of his sins. The chill of death is past, and now the penance fire begins. Glory to him who evermore by truth and justice reigns, who tears the soul from out its case and burns away its stains. The angel. They sing of thy approaching agony, which thou so eagerly didst question of. It is the face of the incarnate God shall smite thee with that keen and subtle pain, and yet the memory which it leaves will be a sovereign febrifuge to heal the wound, and yet withal it will the wound provoke, and aggravate, and widen it the more. Soul, thou speakest mysteries, still methinks I know to disengage the tangle of thy words. Yet rather would I hear thy angel voice than for myself be thy interpreter. Angel, when then, if such thy lot, thou seest thy judge, the sight of him will kindle in thy heart all tender, gracious, reverential thoughts. Thou wilt be sick with love and yearn for him, and feel as though thou couldst but pity him, that one so sweet should e'er have placed himself at disadvantage such as to be used so vilely by being so vile as thee. There is a pleading in his pensive eyes, will pierce thee to the quick and trouble thee, and thou wilt hate and loathe thyself, for though now sinless, thou wilt feel that thou hast sinned, as never thou didst feel, and wilt desire to slink away and hide thee from his sight, and yet wilt have a longing eye to dwell within the beauty of his countenance. And these two pains, so counter and so keen, the longing for him when thou seest him not, the shame of self at thought of seeing him, will be thy various sharpest purgatory. Soul, my soul is in my hand, I have no fear. in his dear might prepared for weal or woe. But hark, a grand mysterious harmony, it floods me like the deep and solemn sound of many waters. Angel, we have gained the stairs which rise towards the presence chamber there. A band of mighty angels keep the way on either side, and hymn the incarnate God. Angels of the sacred stair. Father, whose goodness none can know but they who see thee face to face, by man hath come the infinite display of thy victorious grace. But fallen man, the creature of a day, skills not that love to trace. It needs to tell the triumph thou hast wrought, an angel's deathless fire, an angel's reach of thought. It needs that very angel who with awe amid the garden shade, the great Creator in his sickness saw, soothed by a creature's aid, and agonized as victim of the law which he himself had made. For who can praise him in his depth and height, but he who saw him reel amid that solitary fight? Soul, hark, for the lintels of the presence gate are vibrating and echoing back the strain. Fourth Choir of Angelicals. Praise to the holiest in the height, and in the depth be praise, in all his words most wonderful, most sure in all his ways. The foe blasphemed the holy Lord, as if he reckoned ill, in that he placed his puppet man the frontier place to fill. For even in his best estate, with amplest gifts endued, a sorry sentinel was he, a being of flesh and blood. As though a thing, who for his help must needs possess a wife, could cope with those proud rebel hosts who had angelic life. And when by blandishment of Eve that earth-born Adam fell, he shrieked in triumph and he cried, a sorry sentinel. The Maker by his word is bound, escape or cure is none. He must abandon to his doom and slay his darling son. Angel. And now the threshold, as we traverse it, utters aloud its glad, responsive chant. Fifth Choir of Angelicals. Praise to the holiest in the height, and in the depth be praise, in all his words most wonderful, most sure in all his ways. O loving wisdom of our God, when all was sin and shame, a second Adam to the fight and to the rescue came. O wisest love, that flesh and blood, which did in Adam fail, should strive afresh against the foe, should strive and should prevail. And that a higher gift than grace should flesh and blood refine, God's presence and his very self and essence all divine. O generous love, that he who smote in man for man the foe, the double agony in man for man should undergo, and in the garden secretly and on the cross on high, should teach his brethren and inspire to suffer and to die.